Afternoon, good night. How you doing? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Today we are going to have a serious conversation. Well, maybe not a serious conversation, but there's going to be a serious talk happening here. Now, of course, I'm only doing the talking, but just stay tuned. All right, here we go. How you doing? This is MCM and you are listening to You're Probably Right. I got a different episode for you. Today is episode 229. It's called, what I'm going to read, that is, What Silence Said. Now listen, I'm going to be reading, instead of doing this podcast like I would normally do it, I've decided to write it in a way that if I was writing it to someone, for someone, maybe for you. Remember, this episode is for entertainment purposes only. I do not profess to be a professor of anything, and this is all original work. Hold on, sorry, wrong one. There we go. I gotta put my glasses on for this one, y'all, to make sure that maybe I can read a little bit better. No promises. Let me put these bad boys on. All right. So, did you ever want to say something to an ex you bent over backwards for? Someone you gave chance after chance only to be met with distance, confusion, or coldness? Well, this one's for you. This is everything you never got to say, delivered with clarity. Of course, that word clarity. Control. And no turning back. Check it out. This is episode 229 of You're Probably Right. I am MCM. Let's get into it. Hey, you ever wonder why I stopped reaching out? Why I don't explain myself anymore? Why things got so quiet, so fast? Let me make it plain. When I went silent, it wasn't just something dramatic or some type of dramatic exit. I wasn't throwing a tantrum. I wasn't taking back everything you thought you could coast on. My energy, my patience, my presence. You didn't just lose contact. You lost access. And now, suddenly, maybe you want to show up again. Texting out of nowhere. Pretending it's casual. Maybe hoping I forgot. But deep, deep down, you know exactly why the silence cuts so deep. You got used to comfort of one-sided effort. You kept your space, knowing probably I'd close the gap. You'd pull away, confident I'd come looking for you. That was your safety net. It's probably always your safety net. Knowing that, they'll come back. Me, always available, always explaining, always forgiving. But here's the part you didn't see coming. When I stopped chasing, the whole illusion, it fell apart. I didn't just walk. I dismantled the structure you were hiding behind. The game where you stay distant and still feel wanted. That's over. Now, the silence. It's not a mood. It's not a mirror. Or is it? And you're finally seeing yourself without the buffer of my effort. So yeah, I'm quiet. And you're not used to that, are you? I mean, maybe you are, but not for me. And that's what made it so easy with me. You know what the silence really did? It forced you to sit in your own reflection by yourself. And I'm not just talking about missing me. No. I mean, facing that uneasy quiet where you don't know what I'm thinking, where I stand, or if you still matter in the places you used to take for granted. And I know uncertainty, it eats you alive. You may not admit it. You might even push against it now that I've said it. You built walls, not because you don't feel, but because you feel everything. You just never figured out how to hold it, how to sit with it without running. That distance you kept, it was yours to keep, and still is. That wasn't strength. That was fear dressed up as control. But now, that script's flipped. Now, you're the one spiraling. Not because you lost love, because really, I have no clue. Do you? But because you lost the role you were used to playing. You're not calling the shots anymore. I'm not standing in front of you begging to be seen, begging to be heard, begging to be answered, begging to be met or hung out with. I'm not explaining myself. I'm not softening your discomfort. When you'd say things out of the blue to check to see how everything was or is, or however you want to put it, with me. And that lands harder than any message I could send while I was still trying to fix what you kept breaking. No contact doesn't just stop words. It shuts off your supply. That steady drip of reassurance you fed off, the comfort of knowing I'd always be around, always clarifying, always forgiving, that's gone now. You don't get to know where I am, who I'm with, how I'm moving. And that not knowing, that's where it starts to unravel you, isn't it? You said no. I found out that people say things, but it's not where their heart is always. probably less than half the time. Because you operated on predictability. You knew that if you went quiet, I'd come find you. You knew if you tossed out just enough, those little crumbs of interest, I'd bite. You played the imbalance like it was your birthright. Maybe I'd talk about the grass, and you'd flip it and talk about the sky, giving nothing that was asked of you. Always flying high in the sky like a plane. Although in your heart, that's not how you felt. And I didn't realize it though. But now, I've gone. Still. Sat in my own peace. Said nothing. And you? You lost grip. Not because I blocked you, because I didn't really. Not because I lashed out, because I didn't really. But because I stopped performing the role you cast me in. Now you're the one wondering. You're the one thinking of reaching out. And for once, the rhythm you used to control isn't yours to set anymore. Now, look at you. Reacting to my absence. Will you ever hear from me again? Will you ever see me again? Is there some way that you could find me on social media or wherever to find out what I'm up to? Who could you ask in the real world if they've seen me and what I'm up to? That's the part you didn't count on. You probably didn't care either. But oh, how time changes things. You thought silence would be temporary, a mood, a phase, a season. But this? You needed peace. You needed somebody not to care what you did, where you went, who you talked to, who you hung out with, who was seeking you, who you were dying to speak to see what was going on. This is me taking back what was mine all along. Oh, not what you thought. No. My voice, my time, and one of the greatest abilities that you've ever known, my availability. And that's what rattles you. Not the silence itself, because maybe you felt smothered anyway. Maybe you felt clung onto. But what it means I might have actually moved on. Maybe I wasn't looking, but maybe you sparked something and now, who knows? Maybe I found out my worth. when it was dictated to me, and realized that it wasn't true. That the tether you relied on to keep me orbiting around you, it's been cut clean. You might really be locked out for good now. And I know your type. You're not going to say it. You're not going to beg. You won't show your hand. You'll just pop up with a vague message here, a fake casual check-in. Nothing too obvious, just enough to see if the door is still cracked. Maybe we'll run into each other somewhere. And yeah, we'll just say it's an accident. But I've learned the difference now. That's not love. That's not even care. That's a reflex. Withdrawal. That's you reaching for something you used to control and suddenly realizing it's not yours anymore. And it stings, doesn't it? Oh yeah, there's others out there. Looks to kill, money to blow, like Drake said, flashy, fit, fantastic even. You act like you're unfazed. More fish in the sea, right? Question is, which ones bite? Like, my silence is nothing, but you feel it. You feel it in ways I never could when I was doing all the emotional heavy lifting. Because you're not numb. You're not buried. And now that I'm not playing the role anymore, your emotions don't have a place to hide. There's no need. That's the power of no contact. It doesn't manipulate. It just reveals. It shows you that the upper hand you thought you had, well, it was borrowed. It was conditional, built entirely on my willingness to stay. And now that I'm out, you're staring at the truth you never wanted to face. You were never in control. You just got comfortable with access. This silence, it's not just quiet. It's loud enough to shake the floor. It's disruptive. A mirror you can't look away from. And the more I stay grounded in this decision, the more I resist the bait, the more the mirror cracks for you. You're not watching me because you miss me. You're not listening to me because you care. You're searching, maybe Googling. You're watching because for the first time you've needed access, or you need access. That shift, And that's where I found my freedom. So the next time I feel tempted to respond, if and when, to get closure, to be seen, to make sure you understand, I'll remind myself, I already said everything that I needed to say, that needed to be said, the moment I went silent. You think I stopped talking because I had nothing to say? But the truth is, I already said it, loud and clear. The moment I stopped begging to be understood, to be seen, to be cared for. That was the message. That was the moment I reclaimed everything you thought I'd keep handing over. Now you're the one stuck decoding silence, trying to find meaning in the space where my words used to be. Let it echo. Sit with it. Feel it. Because that's what real power sounds like. Nothing. And let me make something clear. What you miss, it's not just me, little old me. It's not even about me. It's about the way I made you feel. The safety I gave without asking for anything back. The warmth, the consistency, the oxygen you breathed in every time I showed up with something solid while you stayed distant, unreadable, sometimes unreachable. You miss the version of you that only existed when you were standing next to me. Of course, you didn't realize it at the time, because there were other planets orbiting you at the same time, and maybe they still are. And now, that air is gone. No more supply. No more emotional IV drip of validation and unconditional effort, care, and love. You're gasping for something you never learned how to hold with both hands. Something you rushed and pushed and pulled when you felt like it. See, you want real connection, but only as long as it doesn't expose you. So when someone like me walks in, grounded, giving, fully present, always contactable, reachable, accessible, with no bull, you don't need to step into it. You pull back. You hide, like it's a game of hide and seek, and you're always the one hiding. Behind control, because vulnerability to you feels like danger, not peace. So you create a system, one where I give and you withhold, where I chase and you drift away. where I feel everything and you play it cold. I got other things to do, other places to be, people to see, places to go. And after a while, you started to believe you were in charge of all of it. Putty in my hands, you thought. But here's what you missed. You were never in control. You were hooked. You deepened the energy I brought into your life. Well, maybe you just depended on it. That pull you felt, that wasn't weakness. That was influence. Every time I came to you with love, patience, and clarity, honesty, I became a mirror. I reflected the intimacy you wanted but didn't know how to handle, how to keep, how to hold. I became a drug because my presence made you feel something you hadn't allowed yourself to feel for a while. Seen. And now that's gone. You're fiending for the feeling, not the person, not me. And that's the part you'll probably never admit. But you didn't lean in, you pulled away. That's what you do. You suppress. You self-protect. You run. Not because I was wrong, but because I was too right. I touched something in you you weren't ready to admit was even there at that time. So the moment you felt the nerve fire up, you flinched, you disappeared, you created space like it was safety. And the second I stopped filling the space, the spiral begun. You weren't mourning. The relationship, let's not lie about that. You were mourning the loss of the emotional high. It wasn't, we had such good times. It was, why don't I feel that emotional hit anymore? Because that's what it really was for you, a hit. I was the supplier. I gave you a feeling you couldn't give yourself. I made you feel tethered to something real, even though you were never brave enough to reach for it fully. And when I stopped showing up, well, when I stopped sending texts, stopped handing you validation, stopped standing in the doorway of your mess with open hands, you didn't just notice the absence, you felt it. Physically? Maybe. Not in your head, but in your chest. Not logic, withdrawal. That's why you show up suddenly, if you will. That empty hey you're probably planning to send out of nowhere, that isn't affection. It's scratching an itch. That's a random check-in. That's not care. It's craving. You're not watching out of love or looking out of love. You're looking to see if your source is still flowing. But here's the part you probably can't face. What you miss isn't me. It's the feeling I brought to your chaos. And I'm not crazy enough to think it's only me who can provide this for you. There's many out there. I was consistent. In a world that trained you to expect abandonment, I was emotionally available in a reality that made you believe vulnerability equal danger. And that stability, that calm, that warmth, it became some sort of a drug. And when I cut you off, well, let's say you cut me off, you didn't just lose me, you lost your system. You lost the emotional hit you were running on. And that crash, it doesn't come fast. It's not a clean break. It creeps in when the silence goes from inconvenient to permanent. When you finally understand, I'm not circling back for you. And that's when it hits. Who knows when you're listening to this? Who knows where I am? Who knows? And when it hits, I'm sure it'll hit hard. Hopefully not because you've been hit hard. Because the wall you've slammed into isn't me. It's everything you buried, the loneliness, the regret, the confusion, the hunger you never learned how to feed on your own. And now, you'll reach for anything that feels like me. You'll say anything, do anything, all to get just one more drop of what I gave freely. But it's gone and done. No contact means no more hits. That's what you wanted, right? That's what gave you peace. That's what gave you space. That's what gave you control of everything you wanted to do and every place you wanted to go. You might come back with a harmless message, some light check-in, some nonsense, playing it cool. But let's not kid ourselves. That's not about catching up. That's not about connection. That's reaction. You're not reaching out to connect or reconnect, really. You're trying to feel something again. You want to know, is it still there? You want access. You want that same emotional hit I used to give you without hesitation. You want to feel wanted, feel safe, feel seen, feel validated, feel enough. But you still don't want to show up, do you? You still don't want to grow. You still don't want to earn anything, but maybe you're with someone who makes you earn everything now. You just want to plug back in, maybe literally. That's not love. That's addiction. You weren't drawn to me because of who I was. You were drawn to how I made you feel without ever putting pressure on you to rise to the occasion. I was easy to be around because I let you keep your defenses. I let you call a lot of the shots. But don't get it twisted. That was grace. It wasn't weakness. There's a difference. Someone once said, "You take my kindness for weakness." So when you come back looking all wide-eyed, acting like you just woke up suddenly, the world to you, listen, understand this. I didn't become more valuable in my absence. although maybe it's dawned on you now. I always held that value. You saw it in action with your own eyes. Just didn't pay attention, just didn't respond. You're just now feeling what it costs to be cut off from it. Just realizing now that you've taken your space and the space is turned into silence and you're floating. I stopped playing the emotional caretaker. I stopped feeding the ego. I stopped performing the role you scripted for me. And now your system is crashing. Not because you healed. No. Not because you're not broken anymore. Not because you've changed, but because the one place where you could feel something real, unfiltered, unconditional, alive, is no longer available. That high I gave you wasn't fake. It was real. It was real connection. Easy, simple, real life. We didn't have to connect, but we did. And you took it for granted. It was love. It was deep. It was generous. But you weren't ready for it. You couldn't receive it without trying to cage it. You needed to be, or you needed me to shrink so you could stay in control of your destiny. But I stopped doing that. And now you're standing in the aftermath of your own design. That imbalance you created. It's all yours now. And that's why no contact breaks you. Not because you lost a voice in your inbox, but because you lost the one person who made you feel human without asking you to bleed to prove it, to do anything, as a matter of fact. No strings were attached. Only invisible ones. The ones that have formed out of nowhere. You're not haunted because I left. You're haunted because you finally noticed that life feels like, or what it feels like without someone like me. So don't get it twisted. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, you must not know about me. You must not know about me. I could have another in a minute. As a matter of fact, he'll be here in a minute. That late night message, that sudden urge to check in, it doesn't rewrite what happened. Maybe you wanted to send a late night message, but you found yourself doing something else. Probably distracted by someone else. It doesn't change the facts. You didn't get abandoned. You got drained. And now that I've reclaimed my energy, you're finally waking up to what you lost. Not the title, not the memories, but the intensity, the emotional electricity I brought every single time I showed up with my whole heart. No, I didn't have much to give. No, I didn't give you much. Now you're hungry for that hit again. And you probably have nowhere to find it. No idea where to find it. Yeah, there's others out there. But are they like me? Oh, never mind. We're all the same, right? Let me break this wide open, since no one else ever had the nerve to say it out loud. Because, like you don't process love while it's right in front of them, you only start to feel it once it's gone. You don't notice presence, you notice absence. Weird, right? When I was next to you, loving you, choosing you, staying when you shut down, you weren't there. You were numb, emotionally absent, distant, like love was something dangerous. And maybe it was for you. Maybe closeness reminded you of something unresolved from the past. Was it the past? A wound from your past. Memories you were never able to unpack properly. Whatever it was, your nervous system had already made up its mind. Intimacy is a threat. So when I gave you love, your body treated it like danger, always facing away when it was time for love. It was your certain and most special way. Think about it. You didn't receive it. You couldn't rest in it. As a matter of fact, whenever there was a situation right after you turned cold, and you didn't even know why you were doing it, you didn't feel full. You felt exposed. And your instinct was to create space, push back, criticize, label me as too much, dangerous, too emotional. When in truth, I was the one showing up fully while you stayed half closed. And I took that personally. I thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe if I gave you space, if I held back, if I became smaller, quieter, easy to manage, silent, you'd finally feel better. I internalized your shutdown like it was my fault. But the truth, the more I gave, the more love I gave, the more you recoiled. Not because my love was wrong, but because it was unfamiliar, and unfamiliar scares you. There was no tricks behind anything I did or said. There was nothing hidden. But was I able to be fully myself and say anything and do anything and show you anything? No, because you had an opinion about everything. Here's where everything shifted. When I finally had the strength to stop, to walk, to go no contact, to cord, that cord you thought I always was tied to, well, I cut it. And something changed in you. Not loud, not fast, but deep. For the first time, you felt what you refused to feel while I was near. The quiet, the loss, the missing. You built your world in distance, but the silence I left behind, it cut through all of that. Because while you never felt safe in closeness, you still craved the connection. Weird, right? You just didn't know how to receive it. But once I was gone, the weight of that missing hit you like a wave. Suddenly, it all came rushing back like the song. The look in my eyes when I saw the good in you, the way I smiled, the way I stared at you, when you let your guard down, the way I stayed patient when you didn't deserve it. Every text you had ignored, every call you didn't want to give or have time for. every time I showed up and you turned away. Maybe our last hug that you didn't realize was the last hug. Or did you? Now you realized, or at least now you finally realizing that you lost wasn't just what you lost wasn't just a person. You lost a presence, a force, a grounding energy that made you feel whole in ways you never had the courage to face. That's the paradox, isn't it? I wasn't orbiting your world with tricks, hiding whole other lives. I wasn't forcing you to take care of things that I helped you create, that I had no intention of helping you take care of. I wasn't discrediting you or making you feel like you were crazy or making you feel like you're an idiot. You didn't feel safe with me when I was close. But now that I'm gone, you finally feel something real. Not because I came back, but because I didn't. All those chances I gave, the softness, the patience, the way I showed up when you didn't even have the words to ask, all of that comes crashing into your mind now, like a film you never bothered to appreciate while it was playing. And now the credits are rolling, and you're sitting there alone, stuck in an empty theater by yourself. Let's be clear. This isn't romantic. It's not some poetic ache. It's chaos. It's pain. Because now you're asking the question you couldn't, or can't answer. Why didn't I just let them in? Why didn't I just run? Or why did I run? Why did it feel so hollow now? Or why does it feel so hollow now? He wasn't even that special. Doesn't really make any sense. But the worst part, the part that haunts you, is knowing that you can't come back. You can't unreject what you pushed away. The moment's gone. I'm gone. And that door you've always assumed would be open for you, now you're the one on the other side of it, wondering how the heck did he get there? And you don't even know how to knock at this point. That's the agony you'll never show anyone. Maybe you'll post that you're fine somewhere. I won't be looking at it. Smile like it didn't matter. Maybe you'll even tell people that I and you both know. No big deal. Pretend everything was mutual. Pretend everything was less than what it was. But inside you're unraveling because the emotions you spent your life burying, I stirred them up. I brought them to the surface, and now you have no amour left. And the obsession begins. Not with the arguments or the reasons we ended, because there wasn't any, but with how you felt when I was soft, when I was patient, when I gave you everything without flinching. When I tried to give and you tried to give back what I gave. All right, there we go. I gotta wait till you're not making noise in the background. Gotta finish this thing. I continue. And here's the truth you have to swallow. You weren't numb because I wasn't enough. You weren't numb because you never learned to feel. I was the one who cracked the shell. I was the one who offered connection with no strings, no leash, no performance necessary. And now you're alone. Well, are you really though? Picking through all old messages, looking at old pictures, replaying old memories, maybe songs that meant nothing at the time, whatever you actually kept. Trying to piece together a feeling you didn't know how to hold when it was there. And that's why you thought about reaching out. Not because you're ready for love, but because the silence is louder than anything you've ever faced. And when you started wondering if you were ever cared for, or if you ever cared, when you question whether you ever felt anything real, know this: you feel it now. Not when I was pleading, not when I was breaking, not when I gave you every chance to meet me halfway. You feel it now in the stillness I left behind. Because for someone who feared closeness, love only became visible once it was gone. And now you see me, clear as day, fully, completely, tragically, too late. That's the silence you use to weaponize the gap, the cold shoulder, the disappearing act. The silence became my sanctuary, what I used and what I used to fear. And now it's my power, not out of spite, not for revenge, but because truth echoes in the quiet. And the truth is, when I stopped reacting, when I cut off every outlet you used to prop yourself up, you felt the earthquake. Because your identity was never built on intimacy, it was built on access. You got used to walking away while still being adored. You got used to being somewhere else in the distant while still being chosen. Relaxing far away for absolutely no reason. But no more. Not anymore. Now you get to feel what I felt. Except this time you have to do it alone. You got used to avoiding conversations and still being pursued. Because I gave you that. I gave you the cushion, that safety net. I reached out many times first in some ways. I stitched the cracks. I closed the distance. I made sure the bond didn't break, even when you kept pushing me to the edge of myself. But the moment I stopped speaking, no warning, no announcement, just silence. Well, maybe there was an announcement, or maybe there was something said. But you didn't hear. You didn't care. That was the sound of control slipping through your fingers for the first time. You weren't the one holding the emotional leverage. I wasn't explaining anymore. I wasn't trying to be understood or over-explain. I wasn't auditioning for the role in the story where you got to detach while I kept proving I cared. Now, I'm the unreadable one. I'm the one not reaching out. I'm the one gone. I'm the one that's in silence. And that silence, that's become your obsession because it pokes holes in the illusion you created that you were the one who could leave at any time and still be loved. Because they always come back, right? Thought I'd break first. Thought I'd fold. That my love would override my boundaries. But I didn't fold. I didn't come back. And you didn't expect that. And you didn't expect that. You didn't expect my silence to be louder than your distance. But it is. And now you're spiraling, trying to figure out what changed, what went wrong. You didn't know if I'd moved on, if I hated you, if I think of you, if you've been totally and completely erased. And that uncertainty, that's what you used to dump me, in a sense. And now it's yours to carry. Silence is not passive. It's not weakness. It's not retreat. It's not a decision, a disruption, an act of power. I'm not just choosing to stay quiet. I'm choosing to stop entertaining a pattern that treated my love like an afterthought. I'm done performing for someone who only valued me when I was out of reach. This restraint, that's not coldness. That's strength. If we saw each other on the street, I'd say hello like nothing had changed. That's healing in motion. While you sit in confusion, trying to feel something through a message you'll never receive. Only old ones that you've already received and rejected or acted like they didn't matter. I'm not being cruel. I'm just being clear. I no longer make myself available for half effort, breadcrumbs, attention, or half breadcrumbing attention, or emotional laziness. I've upgraded. I've become the version of me that doesn't need closure, doesn't need apologies, doesn't need external validation to understand my worth. I know what it is. Maybe you do too now. I'm silent, not because I don't care, but because I finally do. I care about my peace, my standards, my future. I care about never ever handing my light to someone who only knew how to dim it. Let me tell you what really breaks someone like you. What scrambles every last bit of your system. It's not the tears. It's not the fights, because there wasn't any. And there was hardly any tears on my behalf. It's not even a goodbye, really. It's the absence, the blackout, the fact that you can't pull even a drop of my energy anymore as it is. That energy was your lifeline. You didn't love me. You lived off of me. I was the one holding the emotional structure together. I was the power source. And now the plug is gone. No attention, no reaction, no crumbs, just silence. And in that silence, you're finally left to feel everything you kept stuffing down while I was still offering you my best. You're not missing me. You're choking on the emptiness you were too proud to fill when you had the chance and didn't yell. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't announce my exit. I just left with dignity. And now you sit in the echo of what you ignored and what you dismissed and what you had and couldn't hold. Every hour you don't hear from me is another reminder that your games don't work anymore. That your detachment, your cool, your distance is powerless now. I'm not baited. I'm not confused. I'm not circling back. You're alone with your thoughts now. And whoever pretends to care about them. Not because I stopped caring, but because you treated me or treated my care like it was endless. And now that the universe is enforcing boundaries on my behalf, this silence, that's not punishment. It's my healing rising above the chaos. And here's the irony that should sting the most. The version of me you finally respect is the one that doesn't need you, because now you understand the power you thought you had was never yours. It was borrowed. It was on loan from my kindness. And now that I've taken it back, you're not broken because you lost me. I'm sure of that. You're broken because you lost access to the version of me who would have given you everything just to keep the connection alive. Now all you have is silence from this end. The kind that speaks louder than every I love you never had the courage to say. And that's it, y'all. Take care. This is MCM signing off from You're Probably Right. Hey, come check out You're Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, well, very few topics off the table, hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere.